gonna roll right into it. So John, I think we all know who you are. There's people, but there's a lot of new viewers to the show, and I think it's interesting because you have a gaming background. So we'd love to hear a little bit about a little bit about your background, and then kind of how what drove you to Arcade1Up. I think everyone would be really interested in hearing that.
It's a long story because I'm pretty old. I'm like almost 50, if you can believe it. I was born when Pong first came out. So, basically I was a kid growing up in this new industry, this new video game industry, right in the heart of where video games were born in Silicon Valley, right? And so my first taste of Pong and combat, really, I was in love right away. So at a very early age, I knew what I wanted to do. So after college, I became a game tester for Sega. Back in the day, I was testing like Sega Game Gear, Sega Genesis, even the Sega CDs and all that stuff. So that's where I got my start. And then from there, I worked at the PlayStation, Sony PlayStation. I was a game tester there at their third-party department, and then moved into marketing. I was a graphic designer for PlayStation for about 4 years. After my term with PlayStation, I went back to Sega and worked in their QA as well as their creative services department, working on like the 2K series, which is one of my favorite series. Then after that, I was in Capcom. I worked at Capcom for about 11 years. I started out, being a brand manager and marketing for some of the top IPs or franchises like Street Fighter, Resident Evil, Mega Man. And then towards the end of my stay there, I was the senior director of esports as well as licensing. So I was in charge of running the Capcom Pro Tour, as well as in charge of all the licensing efforts for Capcom and Capcom's IP. And so that basically led into Arcade1Up. So I had this really aggressive man who kept hitting me up, and he was from this like toy company, like they made Hatchimals or something, right? And he wanted to make arcade cabinets, and really I was not listening to him. I was not answering his emails. He found a way that his lawyer knew my lawyer, so my lawyer sat me down and says, "You better take this meeting." What this person did, he set up the meeting and he shipped like this big crate, looked like a crate for a coffin. He comes up, that comes up and just gets a crowbar, and what I see inside is a beautifully well-crafted Street Fighter 1 cabinet. It looked amazing, right? So he caught my attention. This guy is by the name, his name is Scott Backrack, right? We bring him into the the conference room to discuss this. So he's got my attention, and he gives me the pitch, and I said, "Well, Scott, what's your plan here? I mean, are you going to sell this for what, $600-700?" He goes, "No, $300." I said, "Dude, you're crazy. Whatever." Right? And then so I called a QA friend of mine, because if you don't know, Street Fighter 1 is really hard to do. It's all the movements are super precise.
Oh wait, he sent you a Street Fighter 1?
The Street Fighter 1, the original.
Oh wow! Oh, so the original Street Fighter.
It didn't have those, those 2-punch pads, but it did have the 6-button configuration. So I called a QA tester over and said, "Hey, check this out." So he's playing, and I see him pull off these, shoryukens and Hadoukens, which at the time, super hard to pull off. Anyways, he looks at me and he just gives me a thumbs up, and I tell him, "Okay, leave." And thanks for your input. And so he gives me the spiel, and he has this vision about, I want to make an affordable line of arcade cabinets that you can, buy at retail. I said, "How the hell are you doing that?" He goes, "Well, we had this idea to flat box things, and it's only going to be $300. And I said, "That's BS. Whatever. I'll take your money. Whatever. I don't think you're ever going to do it. Go ahead." So he had a vision, but I did tell him, I said,
So he didn't seal the deal with you at that meeting?
No, he did.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Okay. But here's the thing. I didn't think I was going to get anything more than just the MG that he promised me. I thought that was it, because I really didn't think he could do it. Right.
So you were taking a risk there then, because you were kind of like, so he sold you in the fact that he seemed like he had a big enough vision that you believed in it, at least.
it was such a huge vision that I didn't. It's hard to believe. These guys were coming from the toy company, but I did tell them before we left. I said, Scott, honestly, if you can pull this off, you're going to change the industry. You're definitely going to change the industry. So fast forward, I didn't hear from them, and all of a sudden I get these product approvals, and it's actually happening. And then when he first told me, he goes, John D, you were right. Street Fighter was the best selling out of the entire bunch, and we sold this many units. And I go, you did it. You've actually changed the industry. And so that's at the time when I was thinking, you know what? Maybe it's time to make a move. I want to go back to my roots, and arcade gaming is my roots, and I want to be part of building something. Because Capcom, they're already successful. So I wanted to really, use my efforts to kind of grow and build something from the ground up, and that's how we started working together. And man, he's a great guy with a great vision, and that's why I'm with him.
Who's this music for?
I think it's for John D. He deserves something special.
All right, let's get him. Here he is. He's live.
Let's talk about John D. I see